How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. Massive update today. We region-wide commodities. Let's talk about the auction house update, region-wide commodities. What are we going to do in this video? Let's set some ground rules real quickly. Today we're going to look at three different things. We're going to look at what is changing with the auction house. You've probably seen and guessed what's going on by the title and the thumbnail. We're going to look at what is actually going to be changing. Secondly, we're going to be looking at why this change is actually happening. This is the information that Blizzard never really tells us. They never tell us the why. They leave us to speculate to the why. And a lot of the information, a lot of the juice of this is in the why. So we're going to break that down. And then we're going to take a little bit of a look at the effects that this might have going forward on the game. It's going to be a little bit of a longer video, so get your coffee, sit down, knuckle in, and let's break this down in a little bit of detail. Firstly, though, as I do at the beginning of most of my videos, I have to give a big shout out to my patrons. It's you guys that sort of support the channel, give me the ability to do what I do. You can join the Patreon for as little as $5 a month. For that, you get access to premium channels in the Discord. There are some higher tiers that give you some slightly more lucrative benefits, such as access to my full TSM profile and, you know, a bunch of bits and pieces. But I'm not going to use too much time of your day today to do some selfless promo. Thank you to my current patrons, and if you wish to take a little bit of a look into that, the link will be down below. But let's see what's actually changed. What is going to be the significant change? The auction house is going region-wide for commodities. Let's be careful about this. It's not going fully region-wide. Not everything is going region-wide, but a huge chunk of the auction house is now going to be region-wide rather than your own specific realm. One of the biggest changes to the auction house in the past was when it switched from being faction specific. We used to, for players who are relatively new to the game, 5 years or so ago, probably even more actually to be fair, the auction house used to be split by faction. Alliance had their own auction house, Horde had their own auction house, and you could go to a couple of places in the world, Booty Bay in Stranglethorn Vale being one of them, where there was a neutral auction house where some trading could happen. One of the biggest changes was that they merged the two. Both Horde and Alliance auction houses have been merged for quite a few years at this point, and now they're stepping it up a gear again. They're stepping it up a gear. They're going region-wide with commodity items. So let's see what they actually refer to when they say commodity items. We're looking at gems, herbs, flasks, consumables, etc. Items that are not commodities, armor, weapons, presumably pets, mounts, stuff along those lines will continue to be realm specific. So the server you are on is still going to matter in some regards, but for the general stuff that you need on a regular basis to play the game, your materials, your herbs, your flasks, your potions, your glyphs, your enchants, your food buffs, all of this sort of stuff is going to become region-wide on the auction house, both for you trying to sell it and also for you trying to buy it. All of the listings are going to go region-wide. The developer note on this is that the auction house, as you know and use today, should look and feel exactly the same. It will just have way more people buying and way more people selling all of these commodity items. We'd love for players to hop on the PTR, copy over their characters and help do some testing. We may jump over onto the PTR and have a little bit of a look at this ourselves. If you want to come and join in with that shenanigans, make sure to check us out over on Twitch. We do stream Monday through till Friday, twitch.tv/Manthieus. Come say hi, and we'll be testing out some of this when we do. So this is a monstrously big change for the game. Really, really big change. And like I said, I wanted to break it down in a little bit of detail today. More importantly, talking about the why this is changing. We know what is changing. We know that materials, consumable items are changing. It's pretty clear from the post exactly what's going to be changing. Before we move on to the why, though, I want to actually just very quickly sort of help you understand what they mean by commodities, because that's a little bit of an ambiguous term and it has sort of caused a little bit of confusion already. But there's a trick to work out what Blizzard considers a commodity item, and it's how the real auction house works currently. Let me just switch over real quickly to our main game screen, and I can show you exactly how this works in game. If you open up the default auction house, it's really easy to see what they consider a commodity item or what they don't. And it's based upon how you would go about buying something. So if we take a look at like any of the consumables, flasks, for example, you can search through flasks. You can look at all of the flasks available. When you click on a flask, you are presented with this interface. This is the commodity interface, where you are forced to buy the cheapest ones first, where you have no control over selecting the specific listing. That's what Blizzard considers a commodity item. This is an item that they say that, list them. You're not buying, this got rid of all of the pretty stacking that we had in the past. This just basically said, here's your flasks, these are the prices, and you're forced to buy from the bottom. This is true for any of the trade goods. We go into the trade goods. Let's pick something that's not ridiculously priced. I tell you what, I can just use any of these. Any of the ores, Phaedra ore, for example. Same scenario. You have to buy the cheapest ones first. There's no ability for you. I could not buy just these 7 Phaedra ore. I'd have to buy all of the Phaedra ore prior to it. This is what Blizzard considers a commodity. Some things that are causing a little bit of confusion. Things like glyphs even. Even glyphs are considered a commodity item, even though it is a primarily crafted item. Shaman, glyphs, search. Here's your bunch of glyphs. You click on an individual one. Can I maybe find one that's got... Okay. On my realm, everybody's posting them all at the same price. Here we go. For example, if I wanted to buy these 4, I'd have to buy the cheaper one first. Glyphs are considered a commodity item. What is not commodity items? Well, you're looking at things like your battle pets, your recipes, armor, weapons, armor. If we go into armor and we do a search on armor, even legendaries, these are not a commodity item. These are, you can go in and I could specifically buy one exact listing. These items, so your armor, your weapons, your pets, your mounts, recipes, that sort of stuff, is going to stay realm specific. But I thought I'd throw this into the video as it sort of highlights an easy way for you to work out exactly what markets are going to be affected by this, because it's not all of them. But let's talk a little bit more about the why then. Let's bring up the notes again and let's take a little bit of a look at the why, because I think this is where things get interesting. A change of this magnitude has to be for a good reason. There's no way that Blizzard would implement something like this, spend development time and money on doing a change like this without there being some significantly good reasons for them to do it, both for them, but also for the player base. So let's see if we can work out what some of these reasons are. First one for me is it provides all players an equal opportunity of access to materials. This has been a bit of a problem recently. As prices deviate, as people are playing on different realms, I should say, people are seeing completely different prices for what they believe to be identical items. A good example of this was the Progenitor Essentia. There were the main crafting component, by the way, that goes into crafting the base legendary items, or at least the higher rank ones. Progenitor Essentia was often double, if not triple, the price on some realms compared to others. Why is this a problem? Well, it annoys players. The TLDR, the reality of it is it annoys players. It's really annoying when they're playing on a server with their friends and they see Progenitor Essentia at 10,000 gold apiece. Yet on that high population server where the demand for that material is significantly higher, it's 30,000 gold apiece. Well, I've farmed up the same item. Why is it worth a third on my realm to what it was worth on somebody else's realm? It's an annoyance for the players, and it's equally a bit of an annoyance for Blizzard as well, because it makes it a lot more difficult for them to balance the cost of things. We saw this greatly with base legendary items. It was nearly impossible for Blizzard to please everybody with base legendary items. They either had to look at making them use monstrous amounts of materials to absorb up all of the materials that high population servers acquire. But then that really screwed over smaller realms, which meant that the prices of the end resulting items were monstrous. As you can start to see here, giving everybody access to the same materials at a similar price creates a level playing field for everybody, and it removes the requirement of being on a very specific realm. If you want to play on a lower pop server, if you want to play on a higher pop server, it doesn't matter too much because you can still have access to your materials, your potions, your flasks, all at a somewhat universal price. You could be playing on the highest population server, or you could be playing on the lowest population server. You'll still, if those two players go to the auction house at the same time, still be paying the same price for the flask. Gives everybody equal access to not only materials, but also then the raids and this sort of stuff. Something that's been very, very hard for Blizzard to achieve previously. This leads quite nicely into the standard deviation of materials. Now, a little bit of a technical term there in regards to standard deviation. The standard deviation, quite simply, is the difference between the highest price and the lowest price of a single item over a given period of time. Microeconomies, and when I refer to microeconomies, I'm sort of talking about specific realms themselves. Specific realms are wildly prone to big spiky swings in price of materials. Far more so lower population realms where the supply and demand doesn't quite sort of balance itself out very well. More importantly, goblins come into play here. Goblins are often known to be the ones, and often seen by the regular player base to be the ones that are heavily affecting the price of materials. There's always that big goblin aspect of buying out a whole bunch of materials and resetting markets, resetting the price, artificially increasing the price of an item, which, sure, it might work well for you if it pays off and you make yourself a little bit more gold, but that is at direct expense of literally everybody else that wants that item on the server. To be able to do that on a region-wide scale, you're going to have either seriously deep pockets or seriously big cojones, either or, probably both, resulting in the fact that there should be less of a swing, less of a sway in the price. If you go to the auction house to buy a potion, whether you do it on a Tuesday afternoon or whether you do it on a Saturday afternoon, the prices should be a lot closer. There will still be a difference. Supply and demand is still a thing. Peak times of the week when guilds are going out to raid, of which will region-wide all happen at similar points, by the way. Reset day is still going to be an expensive day to buy your food, your potions, etc. But it'll bring those two prices together. It won't be so much that if you buy your potions at a quiet time of the week, they could actually technically be like half the price they are on reset day nowadays. The difference in material prices is quite dramatic. And that also annoys players. This is another one of the big whys. This also annoys players. It's removing the frustration. Nobody likes to go to the auction house with the mindset that the potions or the flasks that they need to buy are like one price, to then get to the auction house and find out that they're twice the price they expected to pay, and they have no other choice in the matter, but they need them to go and do their raiding or their Mythic Plus or whatever. It's a frustration for the regular player, and this helps alleviate that pressure a little bit. It sort of does help to reduce cancel scanning. Now, this is something I've seen a few people talk about regarding this, but not so many. But it does dramatically help reduce cancel scanning. Not everywhere, though, because this doesn't affect everything. Your big ticket items, base legendary items, has been a prone one for this. There's cancel scanning meta, where people sit at the auction house all day and they cancel their auctions and they put them back on the auction house as fast as they can, and they repeat this process to try and keep their items front of the queue. They want their item to be the first one that somebody comes in and purchases. Now, that's somewhat of a valuable thing to do if you're fighting within a small crowd of people. When you're cancel scanning and you're doing it somewhat aggressively, if you're competing against 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 other players, it's not that bad. There's still, you'll still post your auctions, and it might be at the front of the queue for as long as it takes you to cancel the rest off and keep the cycle flowing. Cancel scanning really falls out of the arse falls out of the method when you're doing it at a much against far more people. If there are 20 people trying to cancel scan to keep their potions at the front of the queue, it's a pointless effort. You're going to post yours, and then 19 people are going to post theirs straight after. The effect of that is diminished almost entirely. Cancel scanning has been a bit of a plague this expansion. And I think this goes some way to alleviate cancel scanning, at least in these specific markets. The likelihood of people cancel scanning on potions and flasks, food, this sort of stuff nowadays is going to drop very heavily. There's really not going to be much benefit to doing it. Post your items on the auction house at the price that you want to sell them for, and they're either going to sell or they're not. Not so good for gold makers. Definitely not. I cannot specify more. This is not great for gold makers. Cancel scanning, as laborious and painful as it was to do, the reason people did it was because it's really good for making gold. But getting rid of that is going to mean that the average player has a slightly easier time with the auction house. Right. Now we're getting to the big why, though. These are all sort of PR speak. These are all examples of why they're doing this, that they'd probably quite happily talk to people about. I'm quite sure in the next few days we'll see questions. Devs might respond to questions on this. These are probably going to be some of the answers that may be publicly spoken. Let's talk about the one reason, and I feel the true reason to why this is probably happening. You've got to follow the money. People call me skeptical about this, but I understand the fact that Blizzard is a company. Blizzard is a business. They're out there to make money. The real reason I feel that this is being changed, and the real reason why I feel that it's going to be of value for Blizzard to do it, is it's going to create a universally low gold per hour via farming and basic crafting. More importantly, it's going to have a value that Blizzard will very easily be able to track. Everybody else will very easily be able to track. And it's going to push everybody down. It's going to push average Joe's ability to make a little bit of gold in his spare time down. Why? Because it promotes token sales. It promotes people buying tokens with real money to get the gold they need. If they can make it more difficult for you to get the gold that you need to cover the costs of your potions and flasks and raiding and buying that odd piece of gear, if they can push the amount of gold you can easily make in game down, or more, not necessarily always push it down, but control it more, and they can control it by controlling the price of the materials, it's going to put people in a situation where average Joe is going to look at the price of any given ore or herb on the auction house, and they're going to do some quick maths, and they're going to go, right, well, I'm maybe only going to be able to make X amount of gold per hour by farming this, and even then I'm competing against not just players on my realm, but the entire region when it comes to selling it. Just buy a token instead, it's easier. And that's the mindset that Blizzard wants to promote. Now, this is not going to be the reason that they're going to step forward and say, but maybe it's a glass is half empty approach. I'm not entirely sure. Let me know what your thoughts on this, but I feel the real reason that they're doing this is likely to make farming and basic level crafting less valuable. Simply making it less valuable will in turn directly promote more token sales. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. But okay, we talked about maybe a little bit the why. What's happening? Why is it potentially happening? Are there any long-term effects of this? We've got to remember that this change is happening like minutes in the grand scale of things, minutes before we get into Dragonflight. We still don't necessarily know exactly how the crafting and the auction housing and even farming is going to work going into Dragonflight. So we can, once again, only speculate. But some things we do know for sure. It's going to heavily reduce the goal-making opportunities for the average player. I want to specify that if you're sat here watching this video now and you are currently, what is it, nearly 20 minutes into this video, firstly, big shout out for getting this far through to the video. Thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying. Make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already. But I would not consider you the average player. The fact that you're showing a vested interest in what's coming up, what's changing, how it might affect the goal-making scene, instantly takes you out of that pool of average players. When I talk about the average player, I'm talking about the person that runs their Mythic Plus, runs their raiding, and given the right opportunity, would of course like to try and make a little bit of gold on the side to cover the cost of that new shiny mount, or to get that piece of transmog they've had their eye on for a while. The average player is going to find it a lot more difficult to just go out, gather materials, and sell them. They'll still be able to do it, but the return that they will get for investing that time is going to be probably, on average, quite a lot less. It's going to basically mean that finding that untapped market is basically impossible. Let's take a look at every single YouTube video and every single goal-making guide that's existed for the past however long. Nearly every single one of those videos has presented you with an opportunity and then suggested you go and look at your realm's prices to see if it's viable and see if it's worthwhile. This is no longer going to be the case. It's going to be very simple that everybody's going to have the same price for all the materials. Finding that market that is not necessarily being heavily dominated is going to disappear. At least for materials, at least for farming materials, at least for crafting basic items. Alchemy is going to be nearly impossible to make any gold with. Cooking is going to be heavily diminished in value for sure. Because you're competing against everybody now. You're not competing against just the handful of other players on your realm. You're going to be competing against everybody. And statistically, the more people you have engaging in a thing, the closer to an average you're going to get. So finding that untapped market is going to be very, very difficult going forward, unless we see really significant changes to how things operate in Dragonflight. Now, there's one thing that I think I'm going to save this topic for an entirely separate video, because I could talk about this alone for 20 minutes. But I really do feel that one of the things that Blizzard has to be super careful with is bots. Oh my lord, the effect that bots could have on the market is going to be heavy. Heavy effect. If you think the botting problem is bad for, you know, those bots flying around gathering herbs, mining, skinning 24 hours a day, if you think the effect of them being in the game currently is bad, you wait until they have the ability to affect the market price for everybody. A bot is no longer going to tank the price of a single material on one realm. It's going to tank the price region-wide. And when you then sort of look at, well, sure, a bot on one realm previously would tank the price of Phaedrum ore. At nowhere, Phaedrum ore would be half the price of any of the other zone ores. But on another server, Phaedrum ore would still be at a regular sort of price, and the bot would be tanking the price of Oxane ore. When everything's region-wide, though, you only need a handful of bots to be active to tank everything, and to and that goes to prove just how the average price of things, I think, will drop significantly. Blizzard are going to have to be really hot on killing the bots, squishing those bugs as fast as they possibly can, and if they don't, it's going to have a dramatic effect for everybody. So I really, like I said, I think we'll talk about that a little bit more in a separate video. Let me know if you'd like to see a separate video on that, because there's some nuance to that is difficult to explain quickly. But yeah, could be a big effect. This though leads me on to what I think is coming forward. Dragonflight, the next expansion. What we're going to see. We already have indication that crafting is going to be quite significantly different in Dragonflight. We also have a sneak preview of things like materials having their own unique quality. And this could be where gold is made in Dragonflight. Let's say, for example, Elithium ore. Today, one piece of Elithium ore is one piece of Elithium ore. But if you could have 3 different qualities of Elithium ore, the higher the quality, the rarer it being, that may be potentially where the gold is still made through farming. The higher quality materials that in turn are going to make higher quality crafted items are going to be the most sought after. They're going to be the ones that will hold their value a little bit more so, because they'll still be rarer. This may be where the gold comes into play, and this may be where you might still be able to go out farming for herbs and ore and bits and pieces and do some basic crafting. And the higher quality materials might be where the opportunities to make some gold is. Everything else, though, might then, as a byproduct of that, become a byproduct. You may go out herbing and mining, and the regular materials you get, kind of how skinning was in the early days of Shadowlands. It used to be so much that you'd go out skinning, and sure, you'd get your desolate leather, you'd maybe get a piece of heavy desolate leather occasionally, you'd get your pallid bones, sure, whatever. You were skinning, though, you were out there because you wanted the heavy callous hide. When the heavy callous hide dropped, boom, there's your dopamine kick, there's your rush. That's the item that you knew you could sell on the auction house and make a bunch of gold from. This quality system that we're going to see in Dragonflight may be how this works going forward. But like I said, that's also a lot of speculation, as we're still at this point without even a Dragonflight alpha. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is what I think is going to happen going forward with this little change. I call it a little change. It's not going to even be very apparent for most players, but for us who are quite interested in playing this game, playing the economy, making some gold off the back of it, it's going to make some significant changes. It's going to make it very, very difficult for people trying to get into gold making. It's going to make it really difficult for those trying to play for free. The play for free crew, I tend to feel, are the ones that try to make enough gold to buy a token so they get 30 days of game time so that they can spend the next 30 days repeating the process. It's going to be nearly impossible for those people to keep up, I would imagine. One last final thought on this, the grey import market. I haven't touched on this much in this video, but the grey import market, such as going to one realm, buying up a bunch of stuff, importing it to your realm to then sell it because there was a significant difference in the material value, that's dead. That process is dead in the water completely. And I don't really have too much of a problem with that because I've always thought it was a bit gross. Now, it may still be a thing on the crafted items. The big grey importers throughout Shadowlands were the base legendary grey importers. They would, craft up or buy a bunch of base legendaries cheap on one realm, ship them off to another, and then sell them slowly for a bigger profit somewhere else. It may still be a thing on crafted items, but at least on the commodity market, there won't be any opportunities or need to do that, more importantly. But my final thought on all of this is, generally, I know that a lot of this sounds somewhat negative, but I take it, I've approached it from the mindset of a gold maker. Somebody that likes to play the auction house, somebody likes to try and make a bit of gold. This is not great, but for the average player, for the player that just wants to play the game, they want to do their raiding, they want to do their mythic pluses, they want to do their PvP, they want to get their world quests done. For the average player, I think it's going to be a better overall experience. They're going to know that their potions are going to be a certain price. They're going to know that their flasks are a certain price. They're going to be able to see that if they spend a bit of time farming some materials, they're likely to get this amount of gold for doing it. Everything's going to be a lot more determined, and that puts people's mind at ease and helps create a better overall experience for the player base. They're going to be more incentivized to buy tokens, sure, but in a world where, microtransactions and we pay a box price, we also pay a subscription. To have the need to buy tokens as well, I think, is a little bit egregious, and I think it's getting a little bit out of hand, but hey, that's each to their own. If they want to spend some real money to alleviate their gold problems, then that is entirely up to them. But there we go, boys and girls. That was my little overview that I appreciate is nearly half an hour long. Thank you if you stuck around through this video. Make sure you hit the like button. Leave your comments down below on what you think this changes, how these changes are going to affect you. I'd love to see people's feedback. And I'll leave it there for today. Enjoy the rest of your day, boys and girls. Have a good one. Catch you next time. Peace.